Kendrick is like, you playing with me at this point. And it's like, enough of the sneak dissing. Let's get down. Let's get down. Let's rumble. F it. We're not gonna do this another 10 years. Enough is enough. Hey cousins, welcome back to my channel. My name is Moni if you are new here, and today we're going to be reacting to The Day Drake Died by Drake Dxed. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I will have the official link to this video in my description box so you can go over there and show them some love. So please be sure to like this video, leave a comment if you will, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
In 2012, a 25-year-old rapper from Toronto, Canada, embarked on the second tour of his career, just a few months after dropping his second album, a modern masterpiece that mixed sentimental R&B with pop rap, with contrasting themes of family, loneliness, sex, romance, fame, and money. On top of luxurious instrumentals, it was an instant hit. It sold 600,000 copies in its first week, and it won Best Rap Album at the 2013 Grammys. Of course, in the same vein, the accompanying tour was the highest-grossing rap tour of the year. It made over $50 million, with stops in over 60 cities around the world, with tickets at many venues selling out completely in a matter of minutes. Equally as important, though, were the tour's opening acts. Two other rising rappers, a 24-year-old from Compton, California, and a 23-year-old from Harlem in New York. In 2012, three rising stars stood.
Funny, two people that he's beefing with. Kendrick, who can't stand him and hasn't been able to stand him. I feel as though something happened on this tour. I don't know if they're going to get into that. And then there's ASAP Rocky, who is basically living the family life that Drake wanted with the girl that Drake wanted. Ain't that funny?
On stages together all over the world, singing, performing, calling each other family, and celebrating their success as equals.
This is my brother ASAP Rocky. This is my brother Kendrick Lamar.
But 12 years later, they would rip each other apart in an even more public setting than the stages they shared at the beginning of their careers, desperately trying to reveal each other's deepest secrets, no matter what the cost might be. The industry records that Drake holds would take all day to list, from 13 #1 albums to 30 #1 rap songs on Billboard to over 99 billion total streams on Spotify. He's the only artist in history to spend 3,000 cumulative weeks on both the singles and the album's charts. He holds the most #1 singles ever by a solo male artist, a record tied only by Michael Jackson. And he may not be the first one to ever.
I don't like that. I feel as though streaming numbers should be separate from the time when Michael Jackson and stuff was alive. So whatever year streaming started, those categories should not be compared to those of the past. Just my opinion.
Do it, but when it comes to the last 15 years of hip-hop artists mixing rapping with smooth melodic R&B sounds to become the new sound of pop, Drake is the undisputed king. When it comes to Drake's impact and
I also don't like that because that was stolen from Ja Rule. Ja Rule did that first. Drake might have done it better and was more successful at it, but we got to give Ja Rule his flowers. For real.
Influence. Almost every critic has written something along the lines of, thanks to Drake, now nearly every singer raps and nearly every rapper sings. Drake has become so impactful that the boldness or unprecedented sound of his early work has slowly become status quo because it was just that influential. And with a moment in the limelight lasting as many years as Drake's has, his influence on music culture itself goes much deeper than just sales or songs. He did a lot to put Toronto's music scene on the map. He's done a ton to help popularize UK hip-hop artists in North America. He pioneered the use of memes and social media as music marketing. He's given out countless features and support to help rising artists break into the mainstream, going from his first mixtape in 2006, for which he received $300 in royalties and was...
Is it help or is it culture vulturing? Jumping on the latest, hottest trend to keep your name buzzing. Do those individuals get something out of it? Absolutely. But how much is helping and how much is just riding waves?
opening concerts at bars for $100, to 15 years later when he reached the point of being responsible for over 5% of the tourism income for the entire country of Canada and over 1% of all streams on Spotify every year. Drake is the biggest rapper in the world, and the gap to whoever might stand behind him is massive. Even more so, his 15 minutes of fame has lasted almost 15 years. He's not just a star, he's a black hole. His gravity has become so strong that his presence isn't just mainstream, it's inescapable. And with that inescapable, prolific musical output also comes a widespread fascination with Drake the person. Beyond typical celebrity, Drake's existence has passed into the realm of surreal spectacle. The right to privacy simply no longer exists. Like many other entertainers who have reached a one-of-one level of fame, the line between Drake the rapper and Aubrey Drake Graham has blurred to the point where neither one.
But isn't that like his fault as well? Because I've seen videos where he like goes on to rants about being available for the people, not going home to his family, being again available to the people, saying these other rappers get to go home to their family and leave their music behind, but I don't because I love this too much. And it's like, when do you turn it off? When do you sit back and just be you? And it just seems like he has a issue with the family structure based on the people that he's attacked and how he's attacked them. Every time he's going at it with someone, he goes after that person's woman. He goes after that person's wife and their family structure.
Exists without the other. Who really is he? What are his true motives? What's going on behind the scenes? And what is he hiding? These are the sort of questions that become unavoidable for anyone who reaches even halfway as far up the mountain as Drake has. History shows that people who are driven to reach such an extreme level of fame can most often be just as extreme in their own lives, which for many onlookers can be even more fascinating than the music they create, sometimes eclipsing their artistic legacy almost entirely.
Yeah.
A year after Kendrick and Drake stood on stage together as brothers, featured on each other's albums, and even made a hit together on Fucking Problems by A$AP Rocky, Kendrick fired a warning shot that was heard around the world. In the middle of a 3-minute verse on a Big Sean song, he declared himself one of the GOATs, not just by saying it, but by name-dropping every other rising rapper he was competing with.
A$AP Rocky, Drake, Big Sean, J Electron, Tyler McMillan. I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you niggas. Trying to make sure your core fans never heard of you niggas. They don't want to hear not one more now, no verb from you niggas. What is competition? I'm trying to raise the bar high. Who's trying to jump and get it? You're a better off trying to skydive at the end.
Everyone was in his sights, from Mac Miller to A$AP Rocky, Tyler the Creator, Jay Electronica, Big Sean, Big Crit, Wale, J. Cole, all the way to Pusha T, Meek Mill, and finally, Drake. The song put a big spotlight on Kendrick, who at the time was yet to reach his first #1 album. It was a pretty big moment, though, in the marking of a new era of rap, and it's still remembered to this day. It's easy to see why. The new generation had begun, and Kendrick was claiming his spot at the head of the table by cutting the heads off of everyone else sitting there with him. Over 20 rappers responded to Kendrick's crowning himself the new king of rap. He even called himself the king of New York. It was pretty spicy, but it didn't really start any beefs. Kendrick even said in the verse, "I have love for you guys, I just want to be better than you." And understandably, while many artists replied, actually more rappers made songs replying than they had actually named in the original lyrics. Most people understood it wasn't really that serious. It was something to drum up headlines.
Everybody understood it except for Drake. And even when they explained to him, Drake, this is competition, this is sparring, this is getting your shit off, like, this is battle rap, he's the only one who took offense to it.
Bring some attention and get a conversation started. A lot of the people he listed were his own friends. A$AP Rocky, Mac Miller, Big Sean, these were his buddies. But there was one exception. Well, at first they kind of addressed it outright by playing it down, and both of them went on record saying, "We're not beefing, we're just two different types of artists, there's no issue."
And he's doing his thing really well.
Drake was offended.
And that verse was, he's giving people like moments, you know, like that verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now at this point in time? Okay.
12 years, 13 years
it was
later.
Real cool for like, you know, a couple weeks. But like, if I asked you, for example, like, how does that verse?
As time went on, they
Yeah.
ended up dissing each other well over
We
a
are.
combined 50 times. Competition is essential to hip-hop, and both Drake and Kendrick just wanted to be the best. Of course, they'd try to knock each other off their pedestals to prove a point. It wasn't a friendly rivalry, but it didn't seem serious either. At least that was the case until former NFL player Marcellus Wiley revealed that Drake had come in for an interview on his show and had an emotional outburst where he dissed Kendrick Lamar multiple times before threatening to sue if the interview was ever aired. The beef continued into the late
That's some
2010s
lame
and
shit.
onward as the two artists got more and more mainstream, more and more popular. At the same time, the disses got more and more direct and serious. A full timeline of their back and forth would be an entire video even longer than this one. From massive hits like All the Stars from Black Panther to deep cuts like Sandra's Rose, they just kept going back and forth across albums, across singles. It became clear that any fun Kendrick and Drake had ever been having with their rivalry had disappeared a long time ago. But still though, as recently as last year, dedicated fans on Reddit threads and Twitter posts were convinced that nothing would ever really happen. Drake and Kendrick were part of the big three, so why would they ever beef with each other in seriousness? People said that they were too popular to fight like that. Plus, it had already been 10 years. It was too late. They moved on to other things. The Drake and Kendrick beef had become an urban legend, something that, while technically possible, was far beyond the bounds of believability. That is, until the 6th of October, 2023, when Like That comes out 6 months later with a surprise verse from Kendrick saying, "Motherfuck the big three, it's just big me, everything changed." Drake is one of the most visible figures in Western pop culture, but he still maintains an air of mystery. It's long been talked about how Drake doesn't actually share anything about himself in his lyrics, but rather that his songs are the musical equivalent of mildly emotional vague posting about nameless faces and places. There isn't a timeline of Drake's life that can be pieced together from his music. For the most part, what we see is his money, a private jet. But not just any private jet, a $180 million Boeing 767 painted blue with a custom design by Virgil Abloh with 3 bedrooms on board. A mansion, but not just any mansion, a 50,000 square foot home with a 3,000 square foot master bedroom, an NBA regulation basketball court, 50-foot ceilings, a 4,000 pound black marble bathtub, a record deal.
Who
But
needs
not
all
just
that
any
house?
record deal, the most valuable record deal of all time,
Very
worth over
beautiful, but who needs
$400
all that
million.
house?
But beyond the jaw-dropping luxury, the sold-out shows, the champagne toasts, the side of Drake that we can observe on social media paints a strange picture. There's a reason why there are forum posts all over the internet across many years asking, is Drake an alcoholic? Does he have a gambling problem? Is he a sex addict? His Instagram feed is littered with drinks, gambling, hookah sessions, and a conspicuous lack of relationships. It's been more than 8 years since Drake has publicly dated anybody. Despite hundreds of songs that mention women.
That's because this lady right here on the screen, he got in front of that room and he professed his love for her and he tried to go in for a kiss and she dabbed on his ass. And he been mad ever since, taking shots at her. He been mad at every single woman that he's come across ever since then.
Sex, and dating, no one has seen any proof at all that Drake has even been in a relationship since he was in his 20s.
Like, why would
But
you
as
go for
rumors
a
run
kiss like that?
deeper and you take a closer look, what you find about Drake's life isn't a secret relationship that he hides to protect his privacy, but instead all sorts of other relationships of a completely different kind. For years, it's been documented that Drake has serious connections to the criminal underworld in Toronto. There's evidence everywhere, like a signed artist on his label being a former convict who has at different points been charged with human trafficking, armed
Why is he
robbery,
around?
assault, and possession of drugs for trafficking. But even deeper, in recent years, he's become notorious for filling his lyrics with references to gang culture, bragging about.
I've never known somebody who lived this amazing life, this privileged suburban Jewish life, who becomes a 30-something-year-old and decides he wants to be a gangster and he wants to be in a gang. What kind of weirdo shit is that?
Mysterious shooters that he has on payroll, or being untouchable, or even having paid to have people killed. Whether or not Drake actually is a made man in a structured high-level criminal organization, or just a lyricist trying to find catchy hooks for his songs, is unclear. Even on the most normal of songs like God's Plan, he finds a way to subtly shout out a violent motorcycle gang. There are even deeper cuts like Circo Loco or Stories About My Brother, where he explicitly shouts out his relationship with a Houston-based record label owner who has called Drake his son multiple times in the past. That person is, of course, Jay Prince, who was previously investigated for organized criminal activity by the DEA for over 12 years. He's often considered by many to run the criminal underworld in Houston, Texas. There are even stories about Drake himself sending hitters to confront the radio host Charlemagne for jokes he made about Drake's music early in his career. Plus, of course, the persistent rumor that Drake is the person responsible for the mysterious death of XXXTentacion over 6 years ago. But that's not even the full extent of Drake's legally blurry, morally gray connections and relationships. Over the years, an interest in much younger women has become a key point of discussing Drake's character. Drake has taken a strong public interest to many women who were not at all of a normal or even legal age at the time of his association with them.
Very weird. As soon as he found out her age, he should have kicked her off the stage. As soon as he found out her age, he should have kicked her off the stage. Hey, what?
Strange actions like texting "I miss you" or giving advice about boys to Millie Bobby Brown when she was 14 years old, writing songs to and about Georgia Smith when she was 19 and he was 32, going to Kylie Jenner's Sweet 16 and being publicly affectionate when he was pushing 30, being friends with Hailey Bieber from the age of 14 until they started dating when she was 19 and he was 29. But none of this really lies beyond the realm of respectable behavior in the entertainment industry.
Disgusting.
No one expects celebrities to be moral role models, and nothing I've just said is even all that unusual.
It ain't nothing about being no moral role model. It's disgusting, period. There's no excuse for it. No grown man should be around underage girls. Why are you texting Millie Bobby Brown? You have nothing in common with that little girl. You're a grown man.
Usual in context. So why does Drake suddenly have so many enemies in the rap game when no one at all outside of a somewhat vocal minority of obsessive internet observers seems to really care about his behavior in any meaningful way? For the past 10 years that he's been doing these seedy, disturbing, but still legal things. Weeks went by unnoticed. No one was knocking Drake's door down for a response because, like I said, no one ever even thought the beef was possible to begin with. Plus, Kendrick's initial shots came 4 months after First Person Shooter even came out. It wasn't an emergency. That is, until April 19th, a month after Kendrick fired shots on Like That, Drake leaked his own diss song, Push Ups, to the public, and he...
And why would you leak it? You didn't have no confidence in it?
ignited the
Like,
beef and seriousness. Push-Ups is a pretty elementary diss track. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. There's no big reveal, no huge insults, just Drake flinging a flurry of shots at Kendrick and everyone else who subbed him on Future and Metro Boomin's album.
Do that motherfucking show inside the bitty. Maroon 5 need a verse, you better make it witty. You better drop and give them 50.
that was also stupid because you're a pop star, Drake. You do the same things.
Pip squeak, pipe
He
down.
emphasizes that he's the biggest rapper in the game, that none of them can even come close, and that above all,
Not in the
Kendrick is a
big three,
short,
but you
corny
called
loser
them.
who's been dissing him for years, but still can't be as famous or rich as he is. He writes, "You ain't in no big three, SZA got you wiped down, Travis got you wiped down, Savage got you wiped down." He's leaning heavy on the fact that Kendrick hasn't made music in a long time. As Drake writes the story, Kendrick has nothing on him. He doesn't even come close, and it was nothing more than an annoyance for Drake to even address the beef at all.
Swing Mike then and Mike now. What the fuck is this, a 20v1, nigga?
Half the song is even dedicated to attacking all the other people who sided with Kendrick, of which there were a lot. Push-Ups was a good opening move. He put Kendrick in his place without getting too violent, without getting too personal, and it opens the door for another round. Of course, it was met with a huge reaction. The beef that no one thought would ever happen was finally starting. But then, nothing. Kendrick's response just didn't come.
Kendrick was in that room, in that dark
Fame
room.
is a funny thing. It's almost like you have to be
Getting
messed
it
up to
together.
succeed. What kind of normal, well-adjusted person wants to be famous? Who looks into the future at a life where you have no privacy, can't connect with people,
That's the
can't trust
interview
your
I was
friends,
talking
can't
about
take a
earlier.
break, can't have normal relationships, and says, I want that. For a lot of famous people, the only comfort and enjoyment they get can come from gambling, drinking.
That's what I was talking about a little while earlier. Like, he wants this. He doesn't want a family. It doesn't seem, it's like he's running from it. And then when he gets, like I said, when he gets into it with other people, that's the first thing he targets. I don't want to assume, but I think there's something that happened in Drake's life, probably with his own dad and his mom, where he has this negative idea of what a family structure is. And when he sees it in other people, it triggers him.
Empty sex, social media validation. It's all of the downsides of modern life turned up to an absurd level, and all you get in return is a giant marble bathtub to sit in by yourself. What kind of childhood makes a person want that for themselves? What kind of person chases after fame and fortune that becomes so empty when they have to trade away their own relationships and privacy to get it? And who does that person become? Drake didn't start his career as a rapper. At the age of 15, he was lucky enough to be casted on the Canadian teen drama series Degrassi as Jimmy Brooks, a character who becomes disabled after being shot by a classmate. And the story that Drake tells about his early acting career is inspiring. He said, my mother was very sick, we were very poor, and the only money I had was coming in from Canadian TV. He made around $50,000 per year from the show, which realistically isn't that much
That
after
ain't
all
nothing.
said and done, especially when you're providing for a single parent who can't work because of a serious case of osteoporosis. You see, Drake was raised by a single mom, a school teacher from Toronto, Canada. His father, Dennis, is a working drummer from Memphis, Tennessee, but he didn't raise Drake. At the age of 5, his parents divorced and Dennis went back to Memphis, where he was later incarcerated on drug-related criminal charges, which prevented him from going back to Canada to visit Drake until many years later. Drake has gone on record many times saying that his father was mostly absent from his life, although Dennis has maintained he always brought Drake to visit him during summer breaks from school as a child. Despite the hardships, Drake was raised in a wealthy, majority Jewish neighborhood on the north side of Toronto called Forest Hill. In 2021,
So where
the
the
average
struggling
income in
came
Forest
from?
Hill was over $157,000 per year, more than 3 times the average for the rest of the city. Drake even dropped out of high school and didn't receive an honorary diploma until many years later. But at the same time as he supported his mom with an acting career, he was also in the early stages of learning the music industry. So much so that he was often late to Degrassi because he spent all night recording music, until the point when the set's security guards began allowing him to sleep in dressing rooms so he could finally show up to filming on time. Over the years, that experience became a big part of Drake's mythology. Started from the Bottom was a huge hit back in 2013. It's one of his first big singles. Overall, his humble beginnings, especially the sacrifices he made to help his mom and the sacrifices she made to help him, it's been a major source of inspiration for lyrics on many songs.
He
I Guess
always
It's
looks
Fuck Me,
concerned.
Sandra's Rose, You and the Six. These are all great examples of Drake telling this story, stressing over not having his father in his life, having no help from the man
She looks like the mom from Matilda.
who was supposed to raise him and take care of his mother,
Pain that I seen in my mother's eyes in 2009.
needing to provide for his mother when her health was uncertain, being in a position where he couldn't even finish his education because he was too busy paying the bills. That's not a good childhood experience, even if you're making a lower middle class salary acting on TV. But Drake now, his mansion, his plane, being loved by millions, it's the dream of hip hop culture as a whole. You start at the bottom and you claw your way up to achieve not just success, but success beyond belief. Drake not only became a famous rapper, but became the most famous rapper, breaking records that people thought would stand forever. So why do his peers suddenly turn on him after 10 years at the top of the game? Why did Kendrick and almost every other A-list rapper come at his neck, tearing him down from the big three and pinning him as a goofy? Who really is Drake, if not a rapper who worked from the bottom to make his dreams come true, just like everyone else? And what makes other rappers so angry at him? It's not
Because
like
he
anything
keeps sleeping
Drake
with
has
they
done
women.
is outside the bounds of what's expected for a typical celebrity. Dating inappropriately young women, paying off gangs, being a casual alcoholic, and promoting gambling to millions of people is honestly pretty tame as far as things go. More than anything, it seems like
Dang, that
Drake's
ain't tame.
alienation from real life and the normal world and obsession with money, fame, and validation is the curse of someone who would do anything to feel stable or validated or like they finally have enough because they never did as kids. That is, of course, if that story is even true to begin with. Two weeks passed with no response. The tension and expectation was increasing every day. It got to the point where people thought that Kendrick would never come back, that he had started a beef with no intention to finish it. But then suddenly, Kendrick returned on a random Tuesday, Drake's past as an actor, depicting him as not a real rapper, but an exploitative, lying fake. Kendrick accuses Drake of inauthentically using cultural elements for his own benefit while questioning the truth behind his persona. He seems profoundly disappointed by Drake's public image, adding a deeply personal dimension to their ongoing feud. He's not just a goofy, he's a deceitful fake. With standout lines like the YNW Melly bars and Kendrick taking away Drake's N-word pass, as well as the lines in the first verse where he just says he hates everything about Drake 4 times in a row, Euphoria feels like the real start to real. Drake isn't actually hip-hop, and he never was, and Kendrick is here to rip off the mask and expose the lies. He's here to show that Drake's true character is exactly that, nothing but a character. And while Push-Ups peaked at number 17 on the Hot 100, Euphoria instantly shot up to number 3. The beef was no longer simmering. After 10 years of tension, Kendrick came right out and said it. I hate Drake.
No, for real, because like you said, it's been 10 years, bro. And they've been 10 plus years, and they've been going back and forth about this. Take a shot here, take a shot there, take a shot here, take a shot there. And then over the years, Drake, you've tried to piece it up with him, showing up to concerts, posting old photos, posting old DMs, but then you go around still take more shots at him. So it's like you're confused of what it is that you really want to do with Kendrick. And then I guess Kendrick, after First Person Shooter, you invite him to get on that song with you and J. Cole. Kendrick is like, you playing with me at this point. And it's like, enough of the sneak dissing. Let's get down. Let's get down. Let's rumble. And Kendrick was just like, F it. We're not going to do this another 10 years. Enough is enough. And you can only respect it. Because fuck the subliminals.
It's always been about love and hate. Now let me say I'm the biggest hater.
So many people were waiting for that moment. Instantly, there were tens of millions of videos covering this beef. Even the president.
We are in the twilight zone with this presidency. Yesterday, Donald Trump looks like a fake assassination attempt. We are in the twilight zone.
Came out with a parody of Euphoria aimed at Donald Trump. It wasn't a knockout punch or a nuke, but suddenly Drake versus Kendrick was international news. Kendrick hates every aspect of Drake's life and character, and everybody knows it. But he didn't stop there. 3 days later, Kendrick dropped 616 in LA, a deeper cut that really started to poke at Drake even further. He calls out that Drake's team and his shadowy street connections are disloyal to him, only seeing him as a source of income, poking at.
And in my personal opinion, I think 616, Euphoria is my favorite song, bar none. He went crazy, 6 minutes straight. But I feel like, and Not Like Us, of course, is the hit. But I feel like 616 in LA was the most important song out of all of this, especially with it being identified that the first 6 bars, I believe it is, that he's rapping in the perspective of Drake. Shout out to What's the Dirt for that. And it's painfully clear now because there's in that first 6 lines, Kendrick talks about a wine cooler spilling on hit the white t-shirt, and there's an interview of a young lady who's underage revealing that there was another young lady in the bathroom who spilt a wine cooler all over Drake's white suit. And then it goes on, of course, to say like there's people in your camp, there's a mall, and they're basically praying on your downfall. And Kendrick then goes on to pray for forgiveness of what it is that he has to go do. And I tweeted before, like 616 in LA is not on streaming platforms or anywhere, but 616 in LA was the most important song. And that proves it because after that drop, Drake went and did the Buried Alive parody that was from Take Care, where Kendrick battled with the fame and the money of being a celebrity. And on that, he says he died at the end of that song. So Drake came back with the Buried Alive parody, which only signifies that he knew exactly what Kendrick was saying on 616 in LA. Because if you watch any other reactions to that song, everyone's like, the beginning of it, it doesn't sound like a song. It doesn't sound like a diss. It sounds like a song that he probably had and he just put with the second part of the song. But then it's like Kendrick doesn't talk this way. So Drake knew exactly what Kendrick was talking about on that song.
At the struggle with paranoia that Drake has written about many times over the years.
Let's see. Have you ever thought that OVO is working for me? Fake bully, I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person.
To really know what's going on underneath the surface, thanks to a mole supposedly feeding him secret information behind the scenes, which of course only ignited anticipation for what could possibly be the result of all of these clues and hints. Was Kendrick going to reveal something huge? What's the bigger picture here? And what is it all leading up to?
What's up, everybody? You're chilling with me, Aubrey Graham. You guys want to go for a ride? We can go for a ride.
Aubrey Graham.
This is my baby, I guess. It's a 2004 Acura TSX. It's a nice first car for like a teenager, I guess, as opposed to a Mercedes or BMW. I think that's pretentious, personally. Yeah, me and my grandma have a little thing where my mom doesn't let her eat chocolate, but my grandma slides me a little extra cheddar on the side, and I make sure she gets her daily chocolate dosage. That's my grandson. This is the living room, and where's my sandwich?
I didn't buy you that sandwich.
Drake, you're a good boy. Where's the mob guy sandwich?
I'll make you a sandwich. I bought some other things.
Why couldn't you just got me that sandwich?
Because the lineup was incredible.
What's this?
It's a grape sandwich.
So
Well, give me a chance. Here, well, maybe you can
Get your sandwich.
No.
Want to talk about it?
No. Get out of here. I didn't get my sandwich. I was looking forward to a nice tuna sandwich on a bagel.
Oh, tuna.
I clearly
With an apartment like that, a mother like that, and an attitude like that, it's pretty clear Drake is not really from the bottom. It seems like he started from humble beginnings for sure, and he did face a certain level of adversity and stress, like many people. Divorced parents, bullied in school, trouble with money. And it's obvious actually that someone who grows up like that might end up obsessed with fame and money, desperately seeking validation, stability, and success. Many people find that there's no limit to how far they'll go to feel like they finally have enough of what they didn't have as kids. But what Drake didn't have wasn't stability, money, and a safe, loving home. We can see he did have all of those things. What he really didn't have was an identity. Because there's one element I didn't mention earlier. Drake has talked many, many times about having a difficult time in school.
It was, I just always felt like an outsider. I went, when I was in Forest Hill, it was an all Jewish school, and just being biracial but still being Jewish, so I was kind of connected to the kids but sort of distant.
He was often bullied by other kids for being half Jewish and half black, especially because he went to a Jewish day school around other Jewish kids, adding that onto not being raised by his dad but instead by his mother Sandra. This isn't how Drake was raised.
First of all, I live in an all Jewish area, Forest Hill. Okay. I went to a predominantly Jewish school growing up. I definitely had a bar mitzvah in an Italian restaurant, mind you. The song of the night was Backstreet Boys, I Won't Know.
When Kendrick says, "Oh, you think the money, the power, the fame will make you go away," this is what he means. Drake is half black and half Jewish. He's both at the same time, but he was raised very much as a Jewish person with a Jewish education, a bar mitzvah, and all of these Jewish experiences, only embracing also being black once he realized it was the path forward to a bigger career in entertainment. Not at all to say that Drake planned a diabolical fake personality to use while taking over the world with his music, but that he leaned into a black persona he wasn't raised with. It isn't genuine to his life experiences, and that helped him get further as an entertainer. Aubrey Graham is an actor, and the best role he ever played was as a rapper named Drake. I think we've all heard at some point that Drake is always trying out new accents in his music.
And that's another thing. Why don't he act anymore? With rappers or musicians or singers, anybody, they usually start to do projects, and when it comes to music and television and stuff, I see he's done SNL. Is it SNL? those daytime talk shows, night shows or whatever. I see he's done those things, but I don't think I've seen him in any like blockbuster movie or anything like that, which is odd because that's what wouldn't that be considered his roots?
And if you haven't really ever thought about what that means before, think about it for a second. Drake switches from Jersey club to Afrobeats to drill to dancehall to New Orleans bounce to Atlanta trap like it's nothing. He's done so many different accents, not even just in songs, but on stages. Meanwhile, he comes from a, yes, humble background, but also one that couldn't be further from any Black American life experience, not to mention all of these different sounds and styles he's constantly playing with. I mean, he's even done verses in Arabic and Spanish before. The more and more that he claims the GOAT status as he rides trends with no strong cultural identity of his own, making music that's, yes, very entertaining, but not at all rooted in the spirit of hip hop, the more it becomes understandable why his peers would eventually turn on him. He claims to represent hip hop culture from the hood, while he lived his entire life as a biracial Canadian with a humble but not at all hood upbringing. No one's criticizing Drake for being half white, the same way that no one criticizes J. Cole for being half white. But the issue with
Right.
Drake is that he's inauthentic. He's not from North Carolina. He didn't grow up in a trailer park having to work odd jobs to survive. He got lucky enough to start an acting career
He
at
didn't live in
14
Memphis
years
where
old.
his daddy was
He's been
at.
doing that ever since. It calls back to the idea from earlier. More than anything, it seems like Drake's alienation from real life and the normal world and obsession with money, fame, and validation is the curse of someone who will do anything to feel stable or validated, or like they finally have enough because they never did as kids. As a child who was both black and white at the same time, living in the world of white people, Drake slowly began to take on the persona of a Black American without ever knowing what it was like to live as one.
And then you take on the persona of not to say the worst kind, but the worst kind. Mob ties, gangs, sets, putting hits out on people. Is that what you think Black men represent? Is that the only type of Black men you see? Like you pick the worst kind to want to pretend to be.
Kendrick Lamar isn't mad at him for making music. He even says, I like Drake with the melodies. He's angry that he hides who he really is and built up a character playing at what he thinks it means to be Black,
Right.
without ever having lived the life of a Black American. In the process, making Black culture look bad, perpetuating stereotypes, not taking accountability for his own actions or being self-aware at all. At the end of Euphoria, when Kendrick sings, "We don't want to hear you say neighbor no more," he gets at the core of his issue
Neighbor.
with Drake by reminding him that while he is Black, he's also white. And
then you have your mom open Family Matters. I don't think you should say that. And then you say it like, I don't know no Black man or Black woman who's ever weaponized the N word towards another Black person before. Make it make sense, bro.
most ways, he's lived life in the white world, taking on the role of a Black rapper when needed, and slowly becoming more and more disconnected from his own real roots, while the stereotypical persona he puts on gets more and more absurd as time goes on. I would even say that this is a big part of why so many people say we don't know Drake from his music. But sometimes it isn't even that deep. Sometimes it really just is cringeworthy.
Chapter 8.
Of course, just 3 days later,
Oh,
Drake
wow.
fired back with a 7.5-minute missile strike where he throws a series of image-shattering accusations at Kendrick, mainly
Family Matters is also where he went wrong. With the fact is that he went at a whole bunch of other people who didn't fucking matter, bro. They didn't matter. They're not on your level. They're successful in their own right. No disrespect to them. But you're in a war. You're about to be in a war with Kendrick fucking Lamar. The person you said in an interview, you, J. Cole, and Kendrick. And you can't wait till the new year to see what happens. And here we are, and you spend 7 minutes and you only dedicate 20% of the song to Kendrick. because you're going at other people. You wasted your time, you wasted everyone's time. And the reason I think you did that is because you didn't have anything on Kendrick. You had to make stuff up. You said he beat his woman, that you ended up saying later on down the line that he was molested, which wasn't true. And then you say he has a shitty contract, that he's being used by Top. You didn't have anything.
That first, one of Kendrick's kids isn't actually his,
Yeah,
but is
age
actually
break.
the illegitimate son of his manager. Secondly, that Kendrick doesn't actually raise his kids and hasn't seen them in 6 months. And third, that Kendrick isn't at all committed to his wife, Whitney, and in fact has a history of domestic violence and cheating throughout their.
Which is not true. If you listen to Mr. Morale, which obviously Drake did not, because he said Kendrick was molested, when in fact it was a story of his mother who had an incident where she was molested, and she was fearful that someone would try to harm her child. You listened to We Cry Together and you saw a couple arguing, and you assumed that was Kendrick and Whitney. But keep in mind, there was no physical abuse. There was just cheating. And if you listen to Mr. Morale from the beginning, middle, and to the end, it explains the issues that he had, the state of which he got therapy, and then the breakthrough. Whitney is narrating 50 to 65% of that album. The children are on that album. Whoever you had doing research, they gave you bullshit, Drake.
Relationship. He attacks the brand that Kendrick has built for himself as a moral, virtuous person, similarly to the way that Kendrick painted Drake's affinity for and representation for Black culture as a false image. If proven true, these accusations would be career-ending for Kendrick, the same way that if Drake's Black identity is made up, not true to his own experiences, that his claim to being a GOAT in hip-hop history is suddenly fraudulent. Kendrick Lamar has spent his whole career being a voice of ethics, personal growth, and speaking up for social issues. Emphasizing the importance of family and accountability on Mr. Morale is essentially what that entire album was about. Kendrick's music is the kind of stuff that gets played at protests and political rallies. Yes, he has a big commercial presence as well, but almost nothing he's made has ever strayed away from conscious themes. Oftentimes, his music is centered around how to make the right choices in a complex world.
So much so, they're trying to turn Not Like Us into a political song. Why do y'all keep doing that? Every time Kendrick comes around, y'all want to turn his songs into the anthem for political unrest, and like, we not doing that with Not Like Us. We did it with All Right, cool, but we can't do that with Not Like Us. Come on now.
His stories always have a moral compass. I would say it's even a much more serious accusation than the attack that Drake isn't really for the culture. The truth about Drake is that he never claimed to be. Kendrick, though, does. If we were to learn that he was in fact not living out any of the messages in his music at all, but instead cheating on, abusing his wife, and not raising his own kids, almost everything Kendrick Lamar has ever said in his music suddenly crumbles to dust. Crown of Diamond Thorns, his albums about personal growth, love, and family, putting his wife and kids on an album cover, it's different. If what Drake said on Family Matters turned out to be true, Kendrick would be ruined.
That chapter was short.
In the summer of 1992 in Los Angeles, a 5-year-old Kendrick Lamar got caught in the middle of the Rodney King riots. He remembers it like this. I remember riding with my pops down Bullis Road and looking out the window and seeing people running. I could see smoke. We stopped and my dad went to the AutoZone and came out rolling 4 tires. I know he didn't buy them. I said, "What's going on?" We were all taking stuff. That's the way it was in the riots.
Kendrick,
And the
you
rest
got
of his
some airs
childhood
on
wasn't
you.
much different. He's talked over the years about being permanently changed by seeing a teenage drug dealer shot to death outside of his apartment complex at the age of 5. He said, "It did something to me right then and there. It let me know that this is not only something I'm looking at, but it's something I have to get used to." In his home life, things weren't much easier. His family lived in Section 8 housing, with his parents having traveled to California to escape the gang violence his father was involved in back in Chicago. They lived on welfare, food stamps, and even sometimes experienced homelessness. But still, Kendrick has discussed good memories of his childhood in Compton, listening to hip-hop music, his parents having house parties, and getting to see Tupac shoot a music video with Dr. Dre in Compton when he was 8 years old. the moment he realized he wanted to dedicate his life to following in their footsteps. He later told the story of meeting Dr. Dre 15 years later and explained to him that in a way they had already met, only to find that Dr. Dre remembered the exact moment he was talking about, even down to the neighborhood kids, of which Kendrick was one, who were standing on the corner. People in Kendrick's life realized that he might be different as early as first grade. When he was only 6 years old, his teacher encouraged him to become a writer after she heard him properly using words like audacity. Later on, he was introduced to poetry, which became a hugely important tool for helping him deal with the stress and even trauma that affects many kids in Compton and places like it. His teachers continued to encourage him to write, even though his early songwriting was essentially entirely profane. It was seen as a useful coping mechanism for the hardships he was constantly exposed to as a child. In high school, Kendrick had a close encounter with a dark path. While attending summer school in the 10th grade, he was pushed by the people around him into a gang war that ended up exposing him to near-death experiences, petty crimes, encounters with police, and eventually the death of a close friend. That close brush with death led him to convert to Christianity, which he had previously considered uninspiring from church experiences as a child. At the same time, he graduated high school with straight A's, while also getting to know Whitney Alford, who he's been on and off with ever since and would later become his fiancée and the mother of his children. Kendrick Lamar's music career began largely thanks to Dave Free, a close friend who helped him find places to record while he was first starting out. Dave also had a job as a computer repair technician, and in 2004, when Kendrick was working on his very first mixtapes, Dave Free eventually found himself repairing a computer for Anthony Top Dog Tiffin, a known record producer from LA. Dave seized the opportunity to put Kendrick's music in front of someone who could potentially help them, and Top Dog liked it a lot. Kendrick ended up getting signed as the first client on
Top Dog don't go nowhere without that red hat. I think he's sleeping in that hat. I think he might take showers in that hat.
Top Dog's new record label, Top Dog Entertainment, which ultimately decided the direction of Kendrick's career. Fast forward 20 years, Kendrick Lamar is a giant. If you were to check his Wikipedia article, you'd find people citing him as one of the most influential musicians of the decade, being deemed a paradigm shift in contemporary pop culture. Even further, the consensus seems that Kendrick Lamar's work has changed the American social conscience by challenging the status quo, encouraging listeners to re-examine social institutions. His music served as the soundtrack for the 2016 presidential election, the Black Lives Matter movement, and furthermore, he won a Pulitzer Prize. Just one of many examples illustrating how Kendrick's music has marked a major step forward for hip-hop being considered a legitimate artistic medium. You'll also see a long list of artists, both younger and older, who have called Kendrick a major influence on their work. Not just the grandly political yet deeply personal themes of his lyrics, but also the cinematic narratives and experimental yet mainstream musicianship of his songs. Kendrick is seen by many as being the messiah of modern rap. And it's not a title he's rejected. He's always been open about wanting to be the greatest rapper ever. Despite his private life and the calmness of his public image, he's the only artist outside of classical and jazz to ever be given the Pulitzer Prize for music. And he's consistently been ranked as one of the greatest rappers ever since he first came out. And that's a big part of why, despite the accolades, despite the fame, we don't really know much about Kendrick's life. He's a unique celebrity. He doesn't make a lot of public appearances, he doesn't share much on social media, and public details about his family are sparse. He disappears from the public eye for years at a time. People don't know where he is, or in some ways, who he is. On the one hand, this means Kendrick is free to have his art speak for itself. We don't know about his baggage, his secrets, his day-to-day, just the messages in his music.
And that's how it should be. Like, social media has made it to where people feel like they're allowed to have access to these celebrities and these artists. Like, if they don't have access to them, it's a bad thing. And it's like, we don't really know these people outside of their music and what they want to share. Not everybody wants to share everything. Some people want to keep some things private. Kendrick is one of those people. We didn't know he had children until the daughter popped up in a video and we knew she was born. And then we didn't even know he had a son until the son popped up on the album cover with Whitney and the daughter. So it's like, we should allow people to have their private lives. If they don't want to be out in the open, they don't have to be out in the open. They don't have to share shit with you, because how is it affecting you? And then you have artists like Drake who wants to be out in the public. They don't want to have a family. They don't want to be private. They want to share everything. And that's okay too, if it suits that person.
music, which come through even clearer without the weight of celebrity dragging them down. Beyond the fact that we know he owns several homes valued in the tens of millions, just like every other celebrity of his size, I can't sit here and tell you what he drinks, what kind of plane he owns, and where he goes on vacation. Which also means we have no way of knowing if what Drake said was true or not. While Kendrick's persona...
And that's another reason why this stuff did not stick, because you alleged him of abusing his wife and there's no history. I mean, there was an incident from years ago where something happened in Vegas, but that was debunked. And then we know you got the information from Mr. Morale. Kendrick said that in Euphoria. He laid the map out for us. He told us everything that Drake was gonna do. And Drake did everything that he said he was gonna do, and it backfired. And no one believes that he abuses Whitney besides Drake fans, because they're Drake fans, because there's no history of it. He admitted he cheated. He admitted he wasn't the best spouse to Whitney. And he knew if he didn't get his shit together, she was leaving. And she gave him that ultimatum. Like, I'm not going to keep living like this. You want to continue to cheat and you want to be with other women, go do that, but I'm leaving. And he knew that he could not live without her. So he went to therapy. He stopped drinking. He began to fast. And you can see that growth on him today. Kendrick looks better than ever. His skin looks amazing. You can see the change in him. And that's why, unfortunately for Drake, none of the allegations that he said stuck, because no one believes it. Unfortunately for Drake, there's a lot of incidents of you being weird with underage women.
It creates the aura of privacy for the sake of protecting himself and his family. It's also possible that he actually hides from the world to cover up his lack of parenting and commitment, meanwhile projecting a facade of responsibility and love to the outside world. Family Matters instantly hit really hard. Drake called into question the core of Kendrick's persona, the same way Kendrick did it to him. And with both of them going for the throat, what could possibly happen next? How much deeper could it really go? Who's real and who's fake? 20 minutes after Family Matters called the entirety of Kendrick's persona into question, Kendrick dropped a nuke. Not an entertaining diss track, not making fun of Drake's raps or his lifestyle, but attacking the very core of his being for almost 7 minutes straight. Because in the first verse from Euphoria, days earlier, Kendrick dropped 2 lines that foreshadowed the entire rest of the beef. Drake then went on to attack Kendrick's wife and kids in a seemingly completely unsubstantiated way. The only proof he had of Kendrick's son not being his own child was an Instagram comment comprised of just 2 emojis from Kendrick's best friend. The idea that Kendrick Lamar doesn't raise his own kids was the same way. The only proof that he had was simply that there wasn't proof of the opposite, not that there ever would be, considering Kendrick Lamar's well-known reclusive personal life. Meet the Grams, though, is a deeply personal, scathing, angry, livid attack of Drake's character on top of a dark, sinister beat. Kendrick claims that Drake has even more children he doesn't even acknowledge, has a pill addiction, exhibits behavior and treatment of women comparable to Harvey Weinstein, and ultimately says outright that Drake deserves to die. He individually addressed
this damn song. I said it before. I don't think I could listen to this again because it's so scary and it's so eerie. That fourth verse, he left Earth. It's so sinister. It's so dark. If I felt some type of way, and it's not even about me, I know Drake felt some type of way if he listened to it.
He talks to Adonis about how to be better than his weak, unprincipled, lazy father who disrespects his heritage. He talks to Sandra and Dennis about their son not just disrespecting women, but also enabling and even participating in further, deeper, more disturbing activities. He talks to Drake's other kids about his lack of values and engagement in his personal life, preferring to go on vacation and take drugs than be a father. He then addresses Drake himself.
It's like he's walking up on you.
The most hateful diss song ever made. It's a truly disgusted, dark assessment of who Drake is as a human being. Kendrick chips away at the facade of his character to reveal an empty, false idol, with Kendrick ultimately just recommending for Drake to go to therapy and get his shit together because he's not just not a real rapper, but not a real man. The second Family Matters dropped, it wasn't looking good for Kendrick. Drake went right for Kendrick's family and he came up with some pretty dark stuff. At least it wasn't looking good for all of the 20 minutes until Meet the Grams dropped, and somehow it was such a dark, insane song that Kendrick accusing Drake of having another hidden child was probably the least memorable moment. It also
Yeah, I was about to say that ain't even the most important part. That's not the important part. He said this man is a pedo, a sex trafficker. He got weirdos on his payroll, and he keeping his kids around him.
strengthened the claim that Kendrick had a secret informant feeding him details about what Drake was going to do next. An entire song addressing and responding to Drake's family less than 30 minutes after Drake put out a song about Kendrick's family, it indicates pretty strongly that Kendrick had prior knowledge of what Drake was going to do next.
He laid
Either
it out.
that or Drake was just that outmatched. Meet the Grams alone was enough to end the beef for good. Very few times, if ever, has a rapper destroyed someone's persona like that, just completely ripping Drake's skeleton out of his body, so much so that no one even really cared if Drake completely denied having a daughter at all. It didn't matter. Kendrick had already ethered him. But then, 12 hours later, on top of all of that, Kendrick dropped the song of the summer. Not Like Us broke the Spotify record for the most single-day streams of any hip-hop song ever. It passed,
and it just broke the 500 million mark, the fastest streaming song in history in 70 days. That's crazy.
a record held by Drake for the past 3 years. It actually broke 3 of Drake's records in total, the most song streams ever in a week by a rapper, and the fastest rap song to ever pass 100 million plays. Its content was simple. Meet the Grams, but make it funny.
Hey Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You
Did
drop a response, but for the most part, it was weak, it was sad, and the smell of defeat was pungent. It didn't matter either way. The entire world had already decided Kendrick won. Within 12 hours, there were videos of Not Like Us being played at clubs and parties all over the world. Actors, athletes, singers, and influencers flocked to it online while it was played at sporting events all over the country.
This is crazy.
The battle was already over. Meet the Grams was a nasty, dirty dissection of Drake's guts and how much.
And what's crazy is it's probably going to go back to #1 tomorrow on Billboard after the music video had dropped, I think a week or two. In 4th of July, the chart for this week, Not Like Us is likely going to be the #1 or the #2 song in the country after 10 weeks. When it first dropped, everybody's like, oh, it ain't going to chart that long and went #1, blah, 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 and it's going to go away. 10, 11 weeks later, we're still here. They're playing that song at concerts. Other artists are playing it at their concerts, sporting events. I've seen USC put it on practice videos. I've seen band season is coming. Sports, I've seen it play transitioning into a commercial during the NBA playoffs. I literally just seen a video of Lil Wayne singing it. He might have been trolling, but I just seen a video of Lil Wayne singing it. Like, what? And Drake, you told this man, one thing I know, don't bring up the numbers. He's broken every single record you've held. And y'all begged him to come outside. Y'all begged him, was doing countdowns, asking where he is. Tell that little boy to drop. You know he don't got nothing. And he's been stomping on your fucking head for 10, 11 weeks straight. This is not the fight you wanted. You don't have good people around you. They should have told you Kendrick was not the one or the 2 or the 3. When he said, fuck the big 3, it's just big me, he meant that.
Much Kendrick hates them. Not Like Us was the victory lap, an entertaining, catchy song reminding Drake not just that he lost, but Kendrick was going to make everyone in the world sing along to it. It's one thing to
Cashapp
do
for
a
the
dark
year.
lyrical takedown, but it's a whole other type of insult to make a song that works as a TikTok sound, but basically still calls you a pedophile. Again,
Bro, the song has transcended the beef. It's not even a beef song anymore. Yeah, the lines in it calling you a certified pedophile, but the song has transcended this beef, which is crazy. Kendrick only further proved Drake, I choose to do the things that I do. I make concept albums. I make great bodies of work. I might come out every 2, 3, 5 years. But when I come out and I show up and I show out. But Kendrick showed this man, I can do what you do. And I can do it better than you. I just choose not to do it. This man dropped 3 songs on your head within 48 hours. And they're all hits. Euphoria went number 3. 616 in LA, it wasn't on the charts because I don't think they cleared the sample and it's only available on his Instagram besides like people uploading it to YouTube. But if you look at the YouTube video, has millions of views. Meet the Grams. I don't know what sane person would listen to that daily, but it has like 30, 40 million views on the audio. Not like us. The audio alone has over 120 million views. The music video has, I think it's at 50 million some views or something like that. Probably more. You're cooked. You're cooked. Flambéed, broiled. This is not the fight you wanted, Drake.
And Kendrick with the certified pedophiles line, reminding Drake that he's an outsider in hip hop and happens to be a terrible person on top of all of that. And with millions of people singing about Drake the pedophile, Drake the colonizer, there was nothing else to say. Not only did he pull off a perfect detailed takedown of Drake's existence, he also got his accusations blasting at max volume in every club and bar in America at the same time. Kendrick predicted it exactly right. He was always the better writer. He was always going to strategize better than Drake, but it turns out he can also make the more entertaining, funnier, catchier diss. And it didn't even matter that the grand reveal of a hidden daughter was probably a slip-up. All Kendrick had to do was point out exactly what everyone already knew.
Chapter 11.
Drake has twice the amount of monthly Spotify listeners as there are Black people in America. And studies have found that 70% of hip hop fans are white. It shouldn't be a huge surprise considering that's the exact same percentage as there are white Americans, and rap is the most popular genre in the country. There's a way to look at it where it becomes clear that it doesn't really matter if Drake is real rap, because at this point, neither is the audience. The average person who listens, they don't listen because they care about the Black.
That's another thing I've noticed. Drake fans are not fans of hip hop. They're fans of Drake. So they don't understand the actual history and the actual importance of hip hop. They're just Drake fans. They're not hip hop fans. So they let a lot of shit that he do slide because they don't give a fuck.
Experience rap is deeply rooted in. Pop rap is cool because it's all about working hard, being lit, overcoming your struggles, having money, clothes, shoes, and cars. That's something that excites all Americans. Americans feel like we're born to be millionaires. Everyone wants designer clothes, to drive a loud, fast car. We all think we're going to be the next big thing. We're all in a frantic race to be better than the person next to us. Of course, most people relate to Drake's version of hip hop, because he confuses the surface level characteristics with being the core of the genre, and as a result, dumbs down the entire thing. There's a much smaller audience for music about processing generational trauma, battling your demons, documenting the Black American experience, complex rhyme schemes, or even deeply personal storytelling about the psychologically, emotionally difficult experience of growing up in the inner city. In this way, I think Drake appeals to our vices. His music validates the parts of us that we should seek to be better than, justifying our egos, satisfying our lust, acting wrathful to the people around us. That's a lot of Drake's music. The issue is that isn't who he is. He was raised by a loving mother in a safe home with a humble yet decent upbringing. Making drill songs where he talks about popping his op's head off and paying for drive-by shootings, knowing that he went to Jewish day school and grew up saying he doesn't use slang, never working a day in his life beyond the entertainment industry, knowing he never went hungry or was exposed to violence or drugs, Drake isn't real hip-hop. His songs might feel like hip-hop, they might sound like hip-hop, but it's the same way a book written by ChatGPT has all the ingredients of a book. Drake is an extremely good fake, the same way that AI voices are really good fakes. It just falls apart once you look at what he's made in totality and realize that none of it really speaks to anything true. None of it stays with you after you stop listening. There's no overarching theme, just a pleasant vibe. It's the musical equivalent of TikTok ads for games that don't exist. He's an actor who spent 15 years creating a highly convincing rapper persona until he got so popular, he himself forgot who he used to be. That's why the beef was such a huge win for Kendrick and what he represented.
You tell a lie so much, you start to believe it. You start to believe you really mob ties. You start to believe you really a shooter, or you got shooters, or that you need shooters.
Obviously, he was always going to beat Drake with better lyrics, more clever storytelling, but the fact he could also beat Drake at his own game by making catchier, more popular, more fun songs, Drake lost twice.
And that's what the consensus was at first with Euphoria. Oh, the beat. It started off too slow. Who cares? Listen to what the fuck he's saying. He's cooking him.
And I don't think that's what people expected. But that's still not the whole story. The diss tracks were truly brutal. Drake being a pedophile, enabling sex abusers, possibly hiding and neglecting his own children. This is true crime, Jeffrey Epstein level stuff. But the same also goes for Kendrick. Not raising his kids, abusing and cheating on his wife, all while maintaining a strong facade of family values for the outside world. Suddenly, all of his music would be a white lie. But I think what says the most above all is that no one really cares. No one cares that Drake and Kendrick have both accused each other of truly terrible things and didn't even really address each other's accusations. They both left a mountain of unanswered questions. No one cares that Kendrick's entire persona could be made up and insincere. No one cares.
I think that's not true. They both responded to it. They just responded in different ways. Kendrick was adamant on Euphoria. Don't tell no lies about me, and I won't tell the truth about you. Don't speak on my family. Don't lie about my family. When he was in, what was it? Mr. Morale? No, not Mr. Morale. I'm sorry. Meet the Grams. He told them, you made up shit. You spoke ill on my family. That's why I'm going so hard on you. You made up lies about me. He didn't outright say, "Oh, I didn't beat my wife," because he didn't have to. That's why he didn't say it outright that way. Drake tried to say, "Hey, I'm not a pedophile." And his reasoning was, "I'm too famous to do that." Drake was on defense the entire time, which is unfortunate for him. He didn't know how to respond to those allegations, and you can't really respond to those allegations. He said, "I never looked twice at no teenager." We got you on 4K kissing on the kissing a 17-year-old in the mouth, telling her she's thick. We got you in 14K writing love songs about an 18-year, 19-year-old Georgia Smith when you're in your 30s. We got you on 4K, Millie Bobby Brown, telling us that you be texting her at 14-year-old, and you also had her on a yacht at 13-year-old by herself with no parents. There's proof of your deviances. Fortunately for Kendrick, there's no proof of his deviances besides him saying, "I cheated on my woman. I fucked up. I was a terrible spouse. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug user. I went to therapy and I fixed my shit. And now today I'm a better man." You said Dave Free is the father of Kendrick's kids because he left a heart emoji under Whitney's picture. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Especially when we can physically see these kids are Kendrick Lamar's based on their ears alone. Let's make it make sense.
That Drake could be enabling sex abuse crimes. It's an underwhelming conclusion, but it's also expected. After Kendrick's diss tracks, Drake's daily listeners only dropped by 5%, and just for a few days. It goes back to the state of culture as a whole. Any genre that gets big enough gets commodified and watered down. The fact that someone who shares absolutely none of the defining traits of the artists who created his genre can come in and become the biggest, most successful, best-selling artist to ever touch it, it's not surprising that the person who's doing this is an outsider in the culture itself. It's only surprising until you realize that the vast majority of the consumers of this genre are also outsiders in the culture. Drake and Kendrick are ultimately more so reflections of ourselves than they are their own people. We will most likely never know if Kendrick's personal revelations and reflections are a lie, or if Drake has more secret children. And of course, we can't forget that the people who profit the most from this beef are them. For both Kendrick and Drake, the biggest thing to come out of this beef is a paycheck. That's why who you pick as the winner says more about you than it does about them. Do you value the personal journey towards self-awareness, love, and peace? Or do you want to feed your ego and your pride and be entertained? There's a place for both. Drake's music will probably stay in my library for a while. I can't lie, I've listened to and liked a lot of his music. It's not deep, it's not real, but it's entertaining and it sounds cool. But when Drake calls himself a thug, when he talks about ordering hits on his ops, the same way it means nothing to him, it also means nothing to me. I don't actually personally identify with nearly anything he says. I don't have shooters, I'm not a gangster, but neither was Drake, until he decided to change the very fabric of who he was to become a rapper. Whatever your choice is, wanting real art or wanting to listen to something fun, wanting to know the truth about the artist you listen to, or not caring at all, just remember, following neither Kendrick nor Drake will ever get you there. But at least Kendrick has the decency to say it to your face.
All right, guys. So that was The Day Drake Died by Drake Dxed. Hope I'm saying that right. I will link the video in their channel in the description. So if you want to watch it yourself without me on the screen, you'll have quick access to it. So go over there and show them some love. That was a very well put together video. I really enjoyed it. Gave a great introduction into who Drake, who he was before he decided he wanted to be mob tied up, and it kind of gave a good glimpse into what transpired between the rap beef between Kendrick and Drake. It's obvious who won. And I low-key feel like Drake is going to try to come back and redeem himself. I don't think he would try to go the same Pusha T route, whereas, oh, I have this scathing song where I could have dropped it, but I didn't drop it. I think he's going to try to redeem himself with Kendrick, but I hope he understands if he does do that, he's going to have something for him. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this video. Please leave a like, a comment if you will, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will catch you guys in my next video. Later.